The future of action movies is getting weird. Cinema is gonna start with a video and then they're gonna narrate after because you can't even think to write this kind of stuff. Airplane coming around the corner. Whoa, let's go get him, everyone. Now it's a snowstorm. Flying car safety tests are well underway. In the year 2030, when you're on the way to the grocery store and your flying car breaks down, this is how you're gonna get down safely. So I spent a lot of time watching Cosmic Skateboarding this week. Four-legged robots, that's old news. Two-legged bipedal, still cutting edge, but it's nothing compared to the future of robotics. One-legged pogo stick robots. Come on, that is so chill. Why don't you do that, Grimlock? Bouncing around? You got nothing. You're not like Tigger, are you little robot?
Meet Grimlock stronger. Meet Grimlock muscly.
Bobo, hold your horses there, bruh.
Meet Grimlock lead Dinobot. Meet Grimlock King.
Guy's a one-trick pony, you know what I mean? New artificial intelligence model, totally underreported by the mainstream media, predicts diseases with 98% accuracy from the color of your tongue. Now, I never thought a tongue could even change color, but it does, just a little bit, almost beyond detection of the human eye when you have certain diseases. The hacker hacked the scammer, gave all his personal information to the FBI. Justice has been served. The National Institute of Standards has a new standard for post-quantum cryptography. Upgrade now. There's now a genetically engineered bacteria that turns wastewater into proteins. You're probably all bodybuilders, right? Who needs that much protein? SAG has struck a deal to sell AI actors voice rights. And Bloomberg has an interesting deep dive into Sam Altman's Worldcoin. So this might be a glimpse into the weird world of AI-generated action movies. So as he says in the comment section, this is what it's like when you're dreaming and you're also Michael Bay. Have you ever seen the Michael Bay Titanic video on YouTube? This one's a classic. It's like that chair just blowing up out of nowhere. But why did you hit the water? Those people explode? You don't need that. You see this Michael Bay clip on South Park?
An 18-wheeler spins out of control, and it's all like, brush! In this huge tanker full of dynamite, crawl, 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 crawl. Those aren't ideas, those are special effects.
All right, so now that you understand the context a little bit better, tell me this isn't what he was describing. You start with the motorcycle, and then he jumps over everybody, and then he then grandma gets on a motorcycle, and then she flies over, and then another grandma jumps out of the explosion just in time to almost hit another grandma, and then a flying thing comes out, and then a bunch of people flee the scene when they were just sitting on chairs for some reason, and huge explosions everywhere. Kaboom, every direction. Oh, and one of them's got a cowboy hat on, and an airplane comes down the street, and then the rest of them fly after him, and all of a sudden now you're trying to get away from an avalanche. Come on, guys. Oh, and then you're a superhero too in there at the end. Yeah, so that's what the whole internet's going to be like in the future. So welcome to the age of AI. But where are you going to be watching all of this AI-generated action? In a flying car. Wheels were such a 2025 thing. Chinese company Xpeng now has flying cars available for pre-order. But look, room for 4 to 5 passengers, aerial mode, aerial transportation. It's the future. But what happens when, engines fail? I mean, you'd think airbags would be a good start, but that's probably not going to help as much when you're falling like a few hundred feet out of the air. Parachutes seem like a pretty good idea if they deploy quick enough, and that's exactly what I guess is going to happen. And you have to wonder if car crashes are more likely to kill you than engines breaking and then parachutes not deploying. Honestly, I'm relatively impressed. I guess I've always just thought you're pretty much doomed if something like this happens. But yeah, maybe you can deploy a parachute. It kind of looks like the parachute explodes at the top, which would make sense because you're not that high from the ground. Actually, maybe flying cars should fly a bit higher than you'd expect so they have time for parachutes to deploy. What about bits of falling debris? I would think that there would be special paths for these things to fly. They're not just going to fly over populated areas, are they? There's got to be special paths that people shouldn't walk or drive under, at least for the most part. Maybe there's bridges over freeways or something that they can have in case debris falls down. I mean, what if they crash into each other? I mean, if they're autonomous, they should be able to be, at different elevations, honestly. Like, that's quite a bit safer than everybody being on the same plane, like on the ground. Look, I'm an actual engineer. Honestly, I would not drive this if the only safety were some chutes like that. I'm not flying. Yes, it's dangerous and risky, just like any other type of transportation. Thoughts? Here's some cosmic skateboarding while you ponder those EVs falling out of the air. Or should we just call them giant drones? Because that's really what they are. Just human drones. Here's some more sick content coming out of Outer Worlds AI. Just cruising down longboards is always slightly entertaining, but with a little AI twist, add a little bit of motion stained glass, cosmic aura. Oh, Mario Kart Rainbow Road, you're right. That's probably why I like it so much. I bet subconsciously the nostalgia was kicking in. What do you think about this crystal fox? Getting ready to howl out there, the spiritual winds, northern lights. What I imagine it must be like to be a Burning Man. Beautiful girls hoop spinning, and they're made of stained glass in motion. A flame-shaped plant on a river. One-legged robot jumps through an obstacle course. Check this thing out. A little bouncy bounce Tigger jumping around over there. So meet SALTO, the jumping one-legged robot created by research at the University of California, Berkeley. Despite SALTO's size, SALTO can leap 4 times higher than its own height and even bounce off walls, allowing it to maneuver through obstacle courses with ease. Yeah, dude, it's the Pixar lamp. What an adorable way to send somebody... Oh, a grenade? No thanks. I hope it has a Muppet voice. Nope. We're all gonna die. Hey guys, you're bringing me down. I'm usually the negative one. What do you guys... Why does everyone think this has to be a bad one? That dude had perfect scientist hair? Okay, I'll check that out. We zoom in on the hair. Enhance.
Enhance. Enhance. Enhance.
I don't know. Is that scientist hair? I was thinking more of a Rick and Morty kind of thing. I expected it to be more like Doc, to be honest. Oh, now just imagine 1 million of these things hopping through tall grass and chasing you. I mean, if they don't hurt you when they land on you, I feel like somebody would pay for that. Maybe not 1 million, like 1,000. Maybe that could be like laser tag. Each one has a little target on it, and if you can like keep them from you, that could be kind of a fun game. Oh, or a tiny little American Ninja Warrior obstacle course. That'd be cool too. All right, so here's a really interesting AI article. We've talked about computer vision before, finding, the needle in a haystack equivalent. Well, this is like the same kind of technology that can predict cancer 4 years in advance, but instead of being trained on little dots that turn into cancer, it was trained on what your tongue's color is before and after you get diagnosed with diseases. And it just caught me off guard. Now, I know that there's certain blood flow signals in our face that AI can pick up on. It can kind of tell when you're nervous or lying, or at least when your heart rate is up. But an AI-powered computer model to analyze patients' tongue colors for real-time disease detection, such as anemia, COVID-19, vascular, and gastrointestinal issues, and asthma, just was surprising to me. And even if it was something that could tell you about that, I didn't expect 90% accuracy. And that's exactly what it did with predicting lung disease. And 98% accuracy was achieved when predicting different diseases. So yeah, model was trained, 5,260 images of tongues. 6 machine learning algorithms were used to train the AI. There you go, just another example of how AI in the future will find patterns, understand humans in ways that just we can't even imagine. All right, so if you want another reason why you shouldn't be scamming people online, sometimes you're going to randomly run into a hacker. So Grant Smith, he is a cybersecurity researcher, and he took matters into his own hands after his wife fell victim to a text scam. They were pretending to be from the U.S. Postal Service, requesting some credit card details. She put it in, got hacked. So her husband was like, time to get revenge. So he infiltrated the scam operation and found out that it was actually part of this massive phishing. They call it smishing because it's SMS-based network that was sending up to 100,000 fake messages every single day over SMS. He was like blown away that it was such an intense operation. He gathered this extensive data on all the scammers, and then he turned it over, exposing their operation to U.S. authorities. Using that information, the banking companies and credit protection companies could now protect countless of credit cards. And then turning it over, these credit card protection companies now can protect countless credit cards and email addresses from fraud. And his work also revealed just how intense and what scale some of these scams are getting to, with over 1.2 million pieces of personal information compromised across the U.S. Everything's been hacked. All right, you guys ready to talk about the National Institute of Standards. And you might recognize that name because they're responsible for such things as timekeeping, atomic clocks. But not just that, the metric system, the periodic table, building and fire safety codes, biometric standards like your fingerprint and your iris scans, a bunch of cybersecurity frameworks, and now the first standard for post-quantum cryptography. Here we are. Post-quantum cryptography is now a standard. 3 new standards have been designed to ensure that digital communication remains secure against future threats while strengthening the current cryptographic practices. So the new standards are based on different algorithms. They're designed for key agreements, digital signatures, and secure updates. And even though quantum computers can't yet break today's encryption, the race is on to prepare for the day that they can. So people talk about quantum cryptography could very well in the near future just break the whole, I think it's called AES standard that we have now. So imagine like logging into anything and all the cryptocurrencies like toast. If they can all make upgrades and communicate with quantum computing in mind, then maybe when that day comes, that thing will stay secure. So this is a great standard to know about. All right, the future of genetic engineering is here, and we can now turn wastewater into proteins. And to do that, all scientists had to do was genetically modify yeast. So that's what they did. These researchers were using something called salt-tolerant yeast. So it was already a yeast that had like some genetic modifications. And the goal here was to address environmental issues that were related to food production. So they were, playing around with this yeast as scientists do, and they discovered that this yeast can grow in nutrient-rich, salty waste streams from industries like cheese production. And in that, debris-ridden cheese production wastewater stream, it can actually efficiently convert waste into valuable proteins with minimal energy use. But the proteins it were making were kind of useless, but it could do it. And then we had the idea, what if we use gene therapy, specifically CRISPR, to go in there and make some tweaks so that it comes up with proteins that are more useful. So researchers modified the yeast to make specific proteins, and it worked. Now they say it's not ready to scale up, although I can't imagine what scales better than bacteria, but I guess maybe putting it out into the environment and messing around with genes and putting them out there is, just illegal and scary and maybe needs to be thought through by a lot of, important people before it happens. So while promising scaling up this technology for commercial use is still years away, but it's a crucial step towards a greener planet. And gosh, look at all that youthful energy I had back in that video before I was worn down by all these rapid AI changes. In some ways, and when I made that video, that deal wasn't finished yet, but in some ways, they're in a better position, the Writers Guild, than a lot of the other companies are that just are putting stuff on the internet and then these big companies are training on it. There's some protections. And later, Hollywood started fighting again with these AI avatar companies saying like, oh, just because we give you $100 a day to be an extra in a movie, does that mean that we can now digitally recreate your face and make you an extra in any way that we want? Because if so, you're kind of underpaid for how many times they might reuse you. So it's interesting to see that SAG finally partnered with Narrativ to replicate actors' voices in AI ads, and they have a deal that works for everybody. So let's talk about the Hollywood Actors Union and how they've teamed up with one talent platform. It's called Narrativ. And that actually allows the actors who are all signed up for this system, so obviously they're aware of what they're getting into, to license their voices for AI-generated ads. And this company is in charge of ensuring that they get paid to maintain control over how their digital voice replicas are used. So maybe you could take Sean Connery's voice, you could use it in a cool ad, but you couldn't actually publish it until you got his stamp of approval, or somebody who works for him, or someone from this company that represents him. And it's seen as a way to protect the actors from AI-related exploitation, which has been a major concern. It's sparked strikes and legislative actions. And there's even a No Fakes Act that has been enacted. And even though not all the actors are on boards, the one that are now at least doing something that could be the first steps towards something that everybody can agree on. All right, so let's talk about Worldcoin. Sam Altman's project, super, I'd say dystopian in some ways, but also kind of useful in a couple other ways. But some of the incentives are totally messed up with how the investors are rewarded proportional to the 20 million people who are getting signed up in third world countries. And I made this video about it, which was one of the deeper dives I've ever done on this channel. And I didn't have a ton of information. There's so many things that aren't out there for a project that seems so big because it's just not in the US and it's not really covered well. And not a lot of people seem to be investigating it. But that changed this week because Bloomberg did a very deep investigative story into the whole thing. Reading through this article, I got a much better understanding of all of the original people, how they came together with Sam Altman to build this in the first place, what they say that their goal was. I got to see a lot more prototypes of the orb itself, which, if you don't know, scans your iris onto the blockchain, kind of. It goes into a private database that's just holding it in a normal way. And then the cryptocurrency blockchain part's more about the money that you get. But it's there where you do the comparison to make sure people don't get 2 shares of this. So in theory, it could be an identifier or a way to get a single share of a universal basic income in the future. And the blueprints for it are open source, but that doesn't mean the technology and the exact software that is going up and actually storing it is completely open. And that's where there's still some unknowns. And the thinking is that someday in the future that artificial intelligence will be this super intelligence. It will go out and make unlimited trillions of dollars of wealth and people won't really have jobs. So it will take that money and want to give it back to us as people, like in some sort of universal basic income form. And that this could be the system to do it. But also, if there's an AI, an ASI that's out there that can do anything, like, it already knows who we are and who gets duplicate shares. It just, I don't know. It doesn't really seem like that is going to be that needed at that point. And the fact that some of the investors who have the coins up front are gonna, and they probably already are, making like 100-fold what their investment was and could make thousands and thousands of fold at some point. Seems a little disproportional to something that should be the new world currency system. Might want to read up on this one. They do a little bit more of a deep dive in some ways, but it is a project worth knowing about. And Sam Altman is really positioning himself kind of as the number 2 to Elon Musk in terms of innovation and AI and just world-changing ideas. Which is a great segue into the next article I want to talk about, AI and the decline of human intelligence, the hidden threat of misusing AI. This was written on Medium. Author Paul Del Signor wrote it. Okay, so this is something that I'm slightly worried about, but it's not like, it doesn't register as like one of the most important things I need to worry about because as generations get new technology, the brain's so malleable, it can learn to do different things. And the feelings that we get from social relationships are fairly similar. But yeah, and I've heard this argument before throughout history where people were like, the printing press is going to like ruin the human brain because people won't have to like remember things as much anymore. And social media, you know, ruins the brain because you don't have to think about long form content anymore. And there's some truth, I guess, to both of those, but also it's a different world. You need different skills and the brain is just adapting to a new environment. So learning prompt, like things that are the equivalent of prompt engineering or learning to talk to AI in a way that fulfills some of your human needs, that makes you more productive, that is better adapted for the future world is just a different brain. But this article is talking about, especially on the way there, how AI is making humans less intelligent in some ways because it's encouraging an over-reliance on technology. And arguably, we're already in that world. Like if you got rid of electricity and modern conveniences, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants and I wouldn't know in any realistic way how to survive in that world. So as AI becomes increasingly capable, there's a risk that we may outsource too many of our skills like writing, math, and critical thinking. And the critical thinking one is interesting because a certain awareness that you don't know everything is one of the most powerful tools you can have, and you don't want to lose that. Maybe even like math and writing, which are actual utility tools. Like sometimes you can look up how to spell things or how to write things or how to solve a mathematical equation. But critical thinking, if you don't have that, it's like you have this blind spot on yourself. So is AI going to lead to a decline in these and especially that critical thinking cognitive ability in a way that really hurts the world? Well, this author suggests that instead of using AI to merely offload tasks, we should engage with it as a partner to enhance our skills, right? We should ask it, hey, can you keep like short form media away from me at certain times in my day? Can you help me think about something for the next 5 or 10 minutes really thoroughly and not just jump around like ADHD style? The key is to AI, in his opinion, is that it needs to be a way to stimulate our minds rather than diminish them. And I think he's right on. That's definitely how I want to use AI in the future. And I'm going to make a point the best I can to try to use it that way. All right, next up, let's talk about an article on Medium called The Optical Trick That Knocked My Socks Off, published by the Unknown Doctor. It's a really nice collection of visual illusions. And we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but sometimes it's just really interesting to look at how different the brain perceives things that we know it shouldn't perceive differently. And it just gives you that intuition that we were wired a certain way. There's some genetic factors in the way our brain is, but also a lifetime of getting to this point, like where we're communicating, like we've learned language, we've learned physics, just from the fact that we're in environments where gravity affects us both. And we've learned to communicate with the same language. And our eyes have pretty much always seen shadows below things. We've always seen the sun up in the sky. But check this out. The Mueller-Lyer illusion sticks the same length on all three of these, but for some reason, those little edge cases make it look very different. And part of me is like, I can kind of tell the sticks are the same length, but then you put it in something like this, and my eyes are just like, no, it's a wave, but I know it's not a wave. It's an illusion of a wave. Or this, here they are just spinning around. And this point is the same. And like these points at the center of it are in exactly the same distance apart. But depending on the rest of it, it feels like they're closer or further away from each other. And look at this woman. Who do you think has longer legs? A or B? Same legs. Same legs on this woman. You were deceived by that swimsuit. All right, or consider this road, for example. See how the tree is bigger when it's closer and then it gets smaller, as it should if you were looking down a road? If you reverse them so the trees get bigger and then the road gets smaller, it totally changes the geometry. And that leads us to the linear perspective hypothesis. Okay, and the hypothesis says that when we see a corner like this, we have that sense of depth because we live in a world with lots and lots of corners. But the fascinating part is you actually might see that image differently if you don't live in a Western world or a world with lots of corners. A study from the 20th century found that indigenous people from the Murray Islands in Australia, who were not surrounded by any kind of modern day architecture, were largely immune to that exact illusion. So it's all about how your brain is wired to perceive the world around us. It's just fascinating. It's hard enough to put yourself in other people's shoes, but this is like a whole new level. Like you might not even interpret edges and depth and words with different meanings. And like we're so different when you really think about it. Next up, let's talk about the craziness, the mathematics behind the random walk. Written by Peter Rapota. This article is a really good summary. You might have come across a random walk, especially if you were doing anything with computer science. Like it happens quite a bit and it's worth knowing about, but this article just did a great job summarizing it. See here, you can see Einstein looking through a city. Imagine if a drunkard was down in this city and they were walking the streets. Like if they start at this location and there's a random, purely, truly random chance that they take every corner or intersection in a random way, where will they end up? And this has been a fascinating subject throughout history because for the most part, the way you think something would play out isn't. Very counterintuitive, and it's a quirky mathematical rule called arcsine-law. And the law suggests that in situations like coin flips, sports games, or even academic performance, one side will tend to dominate most of the time, which is counterintuitive. You'd think it's random, so it could sort of like even out or be random. But a lot of times it happens on such large scales of samples that it just doesn't feel right. In this article, they talk about how there were some DNA testing used to convict criminals that really wasn't as convincing as it seems like it was. You can see here's a possible random walk that happens in one direction, but you can see how much more time, if this was a stock, it spends above where it started, even though this was all random choices at every step. But in a long sequence of coin flips, it's not that unlikely that one team will lead for 85% of the time, a surprisingly long time. There's also some thought that if in a long NBA game that the lead changes would happen a lot at the beginning, and then something would happen where one was just leading for a while, and then after enough time, it would tend to kind of even out again. It wouldn't be unlikely that you got a group of points scoring on one team and then a group that eventually would balance it out, but them not happening on an even distribution. I don't know, just one of those fascinating things you should think about if we're talking about AI and randomness and what it all means. All right, Grimlock, you know what time it is?
Yes, we know. It's extinction time.
Nope, it's research time. All right, let's start by talking about artificial intelligence applied to tennis. Matchpoint AI, a novel AI framework for evaluating data-driven tennis strategies. So here you can see the most frequent shot patterns and their point win rates. Look at that one, 52.93. I mean, that's the winner there. And when analyzing the shot types documented in the dataset, it's apparent that real-world players don't really use a lot of different shot types. Look, 80% of the time, they're just doing normal shots. And if they do anything, it's pretty much the slice. Volley, the drop, the lob, others, not that frequent. But there's an entirely new model built around this. So the model is called Matchpoint AI, and it's designed to simulate tennis matches using AI-driven strategies based on real-world data. The idea is to help explore and optimize shot selection and strategies in tennis by letting AI agents compete against data-driven bots. So the same way we get that self-play in games like chess and Go until they become superhuman, it's like, why don't we try that with tennis and see what it comes up with? Maybe it can teach real tennis players something new. And the agents also have styles. So some of the agents actually have styles that are based on the same playing patterns as like top tennis players, like real ones that you could name. So the framework uses a Monte Carlo tree search to find the best shot direction during a rally. They show realistic patterns similar to actual tennis games, and early results are promising, with the AI producing lifelike strategies and match outcomes. And the downside was the model just didn't have enough data, so if they keep, training this model, more and more data comes in, maybe it'll start having some, new outcomes that people can learn from. And the game of tennis can be elevated to the next level. All right, so this paper was actually one of the few papers I've ever seen presented live by the author. So I was at the AI4 conference, and I had an amazing time, and Geoffrey Hinton was one of the main speakers. And then I ran into this guy, and he's like, you should come to my talk. I'm going to be talking about this paper, and it's about explainable AI. I love that topic. And he even worked at the same place where Geoffrey Hinton was. And it was like, this is crazy. It's kind of like the Golden Gate neuron, but they can do it much faster. So it is called Training Data Eigenvectors Dynamics in the EigenPro Implementation of Neural Tangent Kernel and Recursive Future Machines. He was actually really easy to talk to. It's a long title, but it's just straight, to the point, very technical, gets, if you know what you're looking for, it tells you all the details there. Okay, first off, just to refresh your memory, an eigenvector is a vector, just think of an arrow, that's very similar to another arrow because it's pointing in the same direction, but it can be bigger or smaller. So if a vector is a different, angle from where it was, then it's not an eigenvector. And that's even after transforming it. So the transformation just has to make something like grow larger or smaller. And of course, vectors are how we work our way and measure all of the things that are in a latent space. And we train tokens, they're all in positions that are measured by vectors. It's a big vector space. So the paper is looking at those eigenvectors and how they change during the training of machine learning models using this new method that's called EigenPro. And you want to know that because as a model's changing and it's learning, you're kind of interested in what's being enhanced or shrunk. So if it's a concept in a large language model like the Golden Gate Bridge, similar to the Anthropic paper, then it's enhancing as it's learning its concept of the Golden Gate Bridge, or it's getting smaller, which is more like the way we might be changing in real life, the way we're thinking in our brains. Like now I'm more of a winner or a mathematician or somebody who can play tennis. And it's like, we're strengthening that, and there would be something like an eigenvector where the vector space of that concept is growing. So it's fascinating because it's learning something important without taking the same kind of computational power that it was a sparse model that the Anthropic paper was using, meaning to explain everything that's happening inside of Claude, you would need this monster model. If it's a trillion parameter model to use, then you would need, I don't even know, hundreds or thousands of trillions of parameters to explain everything in a way that was using an autoencoder. So yeah, a little bit more explainability AI, and it's just cool. By the way, look at how big this stage is. It's like 5 times bigger than it was last year. There's so many people coming to these AI conferences now. Andrew Yang was speaking. On the second day, I was getting coffee, and I saw Charles Hoskinson, creator of Cardano, also co-founder of Ethereum, also on the Bitcoin, foundation originally. Probably out of all the Lex Fridman podcasts I've listened to, I think Charles Hoskinson was my favorite, right? Yeah, maybe. Or is right up there. I mean, maybe if I thought about it more. Joshua Bach and stuff was pretty crazy, but that's more recent. So I don't know, but it's up there. He's an amazingly intelligent person. Oh, and then of course Stephen Wolfram was better, but he's still up there. See, that was me. I was hosting this panel. It was cool. Generative AI for design. And I ran into Julia McCoy, remember who I did the podcast with like last month? And she's got her own AI channel. And I was talking to her for a long time. Like, how are you growing your channel so fast? And like, how do you get your topics? And what books are you reading and stuff? It was really cool. And yeah, if you could support the channel, you saw I didn't have any sponsors throughout this whole video. If you click on that Patreon button and help me do like a recurring monthly income, like holy crap, that would mean a lot to me. I'm still at like $27 a month from Patreon, but you know, if that could get to a place where I could like do this full time, that'd be super sick. But if not, even like a super thanks for a couple dollars means a lot to me, or you know, even just a comment or a like or a share, that like helps with the engagement. Maybe that helps get the video seen by more people. That's super helpful. I guess it was a little bit shorter. Maybe I didn't cover as many articles, but look at how low that is compared to my average. I only got 6 new subscribers. I mean, I'm thankful for everyone, but you know, I'd like to see more than 6 if this thing's going to get any kind of exponential growth. And yeah, first day click-through rate was only 5.4%. So yeah, maybe that thumbnail wasn't so great. Oh, but look at that, above typical retention. Actually, people hung on pretty well this video. Maybe because it didn't go to such a broad audience, it was the people who did watch it were like more of my super fans and they were willing to watch a little bit more directed. That probably explains it actually. But yeah, definitely my demographics weren't very broad, like 0% female. And I wasn't able to get anybody between 18 and 24 years old to watch the video, which I'm trying to get to a little bit younger generation. Because they're the ones that are dealing with all this AI stuff. Like, you should be knowing this so they can go have killer jobs and like understand a very fast changing world. But I'm also glad older people are kind of keeping up with things too. So I don't know, 45 to 54-year-olds are awesome. But you know, we got a good group of people here just keeping up with it. And it made $11, so I appreciate it. We'll go look at the comments now. And we won't just look at them, we're gonna make a song out of them. Definitely taking this super thanks. 15K subscribers, congrats. Thank you, I appreciate that. It has been a long drive. I should take a second. 15,000 means a lot. It's been a grind over a year. I was even full-time for most of that, and then yeah. But anyways, I'm here, and you know, I'm thankful. AI and smell, we haven't scratched and sniffed the surface yet. Very punny. Or I guess not pun, but very like dad jokey. All right, maybe this article, you should probably look up what organic actually means. Dang, bro. Okay, all right. Right, I could be using it wrong. I'm not afraid of a little bit of confrontation. It's not chemical free or better for you or the environment. It restricts the method and inputs that are allowed in production, but has no bearing on the result. In essence, it boils down to, quote, no synthetic fertilizer unless it has passed a cow. See, that's why you gotta be careful with all these labels. What I care about is it chemical free? And here he's saying it is not chemical free. Sounds like an awesome comment for a song. And because we're out in the country, talking about cows, let's make it a country song. Oh, country two-step? Yeah, why not? Who doesn't want a two-step to organic comments? Oh, by the way, check out that video too. See, that's me on the panel. I wasn't smart enough to answer questions, but they let me ask the questions, which was great.
You probably should look up what organic actually means.
Dang.
It's not chemical free or better for you or the environment. It restricts the methods and inputs that are allowed in production, but has no opinion on the result. In essence, it boils down to no synthetic fertilizer unless it has passed a cow. AI smell, we haven't even scratched and sniffed the surface.
Yeah, there's your pun.
15K subscribers, congrats.
There we go, 15K subscribers, congrats. I'll take it. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the next AI video.
Subscribers,
Goodbye, friend.
congrats.
Goodbye.
Congrats. 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 15K subscribers, congrats.